Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to Excel VBA, dude. This is Danny Blazer. We're going to be learning about what I subtitled as zombie variables. This is session 7. We're going to learn how to keep variables alive. We're going to be able to maintain their values even after a procedure is finished, because as we all know, they get destroyed when either the user form is closed or a procedure or function is finished. Everything gets destroyed. But if we, instead of dimming them, if we use the static statement, we'll be able to maintain them with some limitations, but I'll explain all that as we go. All right, let's get started. All right, so here we go. We're going to learn about static. So static in VBA terms is the way to keep a variable's value after procedure terminates, because when the procedure terminates, all the variables are destroyed and they don't exist until either you run the form again, and then when you close the form, all the variables destroyed for user form, or your procedure or function runs straight through and they're valid while they're running, even in the stack space. But once everything's finished running, everything's destroyed. We all know that. But if when you dim something, you reserve the memory temporarily, if you want to think of it like that. When you static something, it stays. So I have code I've already written just for ease for this episode. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the cells here, and they're going to change based on the collection that I also static in the code. So here we go. This is how static works. All right. So it's just going to start over again. This is how static works. This is how static works. This is how static works. I don't even have to click it. It's just selecting another cell. Is using the selection change event for a worksheet. So see, this is how static works. It's going to keep repeating the process all over again. This is how static works. So even if I delete it, it still goes to the next one. This is how static works. So let's see how we did that. So this is the code for it here. What we did here is we inserted an event. I'm in sheet 1 right now, and we went in here, selected that. The first thing it always gives by default is the selection change event. So whenever you select something new, that's what it does. So I used static instead of dim. You would dim I as integer, you dimension it, you reserving space and memory for that integer based on whatever the data type storage of it is. So integer, string, and collection. You could static anything. Static preserves it after the code has ran. So from top to bottom here, what I did here is to call the collection, I first initialized the collection, but I made it 0. I made an if clause that if this is 0 to not do this. So that means if it is empty, to go ahead to do this. And I'd always do set nothing. I just something good practice. So it'll set that. So I'm going to do a breakpoint by clicking here. And then I'm going to click another cell. It's right there. The my phrase count is not 0. If I go to view, locals, there's my phrase. This is my collection right here. It's a one dimension array, fixed array, and there it is. So, I'm sorry, collection. So I'm going to go loop to the next. I is always going to equal to 5. See, I just started the procedure. You saw me that. I just started it from selecting this cell, D4. And I is already equal to 2. Even though I didn't explicitly say that, because it bumped up an integer from this right here, I equals itself plus 1 from the last time I ran it. So it's going to go through here. This first if clause I put here is because the very first time you run this, old cell is a string that I static that doesn't have any value in it. So you will get an error unless you put this there. That's just for the very first time. Every single time after that, it'll run this. So the logic of the static is the range of the old cell target that I got from the very first one. That's the range, D5, which is the one that says is in it right now. I'm in the process of performing the value for D4. So here's the trick with it is, see the value right here, D5? I am collecting that value. The value for that is old cell, because I collected it from the last one. Old cell equals target address. I collected it. That's the way to keep track of your prior movements, so to speak. So if I step through that, okay, it deleted the old value, the word that was is right there. Target.value equals the next thing in the collection, which is 3, which is how, because it's item 3 in our collection. And to finish it off, here's the important part. Old cell equals target address. So old cell is static right here. This string is going to be held. This is the important part for the static variable, that the value that's maintained when the procedure is finished. So it's just going to close that off and exit the do loop. This is just to start the collection over again. So it's always 1 through 5, as you saw. This is how static works over and over again. So in the sub, and that's the end of that. So that's how it remembers it. Let me start again right about here. Click it. There we go. This is not blank any time after you do it for the very first time. So I'm going to take range of this old cell that I staticed last time you just saw. See, it's D4. It is D4 now. I'm going to change the value of the old cell. Now that's deleted. I take the target value, target by val, target, which is the current cell that I'm trying to select right now. I'm going to assign that the next thing in the collection, I plus 1, which is 4, which is static right there. And now I'm going to apply old cell the address. So next time when this goes through from top to bottom, old cell is recognizing the old cell, which is D6, no matter which the next one I select. So let's do it one more time. Select one all the way down here. Old cell retains the memory of the range object address of, what do we say, D6, which is up here. So I'm going to just hold that out. I'm going to click play. There it is. This is how static works. This is how static works. So I think it's a pretty cool trick. One thing to note is it does this stops if you stop the code. So if there's an error with it, you could step through it like I just did. But you could debugging it, but if you hit stop in the middle of it, that's when everything gets terminated. So if I do that again with the breakpoint and click somewhere else, as we just did. So if I click stop, I stopped it. Let me click back anywhere else, and it just happened to start the first one of the collection again. So for all we know, it didn't work. So let me go ahead, do that again. I'm going to go through it, click. It's deactivated because it's in debug mode. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to click again. See, it has this doesn't equal anything more. You see all my variables are now gone. Sorry. There it is. The collection is now empty. No variables. I equals 0. It's not initialized yet. And the old cell string is VB null string. There's nothing in it right now. So this is the very first time this is running through. As you see, the very first time it touches this part of the if statement, because I stopped it. So that's how you do a static. You could also, if you wanted to, you could static the module at the module level. So all the variables inside, whether you dim them or not, is still static. Now note that that does reserve memory. So the only way to stop that is if you debug and stop your code, or if you just exit out of the application altogether. That also destroys the variables. So that's how you keep your variables, is like that, using this static statement. Alright, so hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and subscribe if you want any more things explained, or go some more groovy fun stuff. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Got any questions, please feel free to ask, and then until next time, cheers.